Hello learners, welcome back to the course on learning and development in organization. We have already started the second module where we are looking into learning and development, the key to peak performance. We have started with a session on appreciating the importance of learning and development. In this particular session, we'll look into the personal performance. I'll walk you through some of the established learning frameworks. These learning frameworks will give you an idea of how to develop throughout the learning process and how to have an effective enhancement of your learning process altogether. I'll also look into some of the key benefits and some of the possible potential barriers associated with that. I'm Dr. Abraham Cyril Issac. I'm an assistant professor at the School of Business, Indian Institute of Technology, Guwahati. Now, when you look into the learning, typically from the framework point of view, the underlying theme would be the expert in anything was once a beginner. I repeat, the expert in anything was once a beginner. So this should be the focal point which guides you to your target. Let's understand the personal performance and organization impact. What are the different possible impact that this peak performance or the personal performance can have in detail. The first and the foremost one would be skill development. If you ask me, when you look into learning and development programs that are essential for equipping employees with necessary skills to perform their task effectively, research indicates that 57.4% of employees believe that training significantly enhances their work performance levels. So tailored training initiatives that address specific skill gaps enable employees to master new techniques, leading to improved efficiency and reduced errors in their works. For instance, if you ask me, personalized learning experience can help employees minimize the mistakes and complete tasks more efficiently, ultimately contributing to the better organizational outcome. There is also an organizational impact which would be more impactful, would be increased productivity. When you talk about increased productivity, investing in learning and development is not just beneficial for employees. Please note that. It also has a substantial impact on the organizational performance per se. So companies that prioritize training and development see a marked increase in productivity and profitability. For example, businesses that offer comprehensive training programs have reported a 218% higher income per employee compared to those that do not invest in such initiatives. Additionally, organizations that engage in continuous learning practices experience a 24% higher profit margin than their counterparts with less focus on employee training. Another significant aspect with respect to organizational impact would be competency building. With respect to organization, we see that there has been a tremendous increase or tremendous pitch towards increasing the skill set of the workforce. That enhances the competency typically, and it has a certain idea when it comes to the organization specificity. What the organization does specifically would be more concerning for their counterparts. Specifically if you look into the case of auto industry, what or whichever model is coming up new, another rival or a counterpart of that particular organization or a competitor of that organization would be definitely concerned with the model that is coming out. So they will try to produce a similar. Let's take an example. When a automotive company is coming out with a EV version of a particular model or a car, then their competitor would want a similar EV version in the same segment. So this rivalry, if I can use the word, or this competition is worth pursuing, and this is what the competency building is critical. So learning and development has an organizational impact of this competency building, and similarly boosting confidence. The moment you have more and more of such products under your hood, under your portfolio, or your services have taken up to that level where people tend to actually refer to your service in a positive connotation, then you have a better organizational impact. Your learning and development has had a better organizational impact, and you also look into job satisfaction. When you are in an organization and you have that level of understanding with respect to what you're doing, then you enjoy what you're doing, and this inherently gives a job satisfaction. This is what the personal performance and organizational impact is all about. It also has significant impact, if you ask me, in profitability and reduction in turnover rates as well. When you discuss about profitability per se, you will see that investing in L&D is not just beneficial for employees, it also has a substantial impact on organizational performance. Companies that prioritize training and development see a marked increase in the productivity and profitability. For example, businesses that offer comprehensive training programs have reported a 218% higher income per employee compared to those that do not invest in such initiatives. Additionally, organizations that engage in continuous learning practices experience a 24% higher profit margin than their counterparts with less focus on the employee training. There are also possibilities with respect to reduction in turnover rates. You talk about L&D initiatives that play a critical role in reducing employee turnover. Employees are more likely to stay with an organization that invests in their professional growth, leading to what can be significantly understood as lower recruitment costs or more stable workforce. So the training programs foster a culture of continuous improvement and innovation, encouraging employees to take ownership of their roles and contribute to the organizational goals altogether. So to conclude, the relationship between learning and development and personal performance, if you ask me, is very clear. It is effective L&D strategies that enhance individual capabilities, boost confidence, increase job satisfaction, promote organizational productivity, and reduce the turnover rate. So organizations that recognize the importance of investing in their employees' growth are likely to see significant returns in terms of both performance and profitability. So as the workforce continues to evolve, fostering a culture of continuous learning will be vital for both individual success and organizational resilience altogether. Now, when you talk about specificity with respect to measuring L&D, I will definitely try to lead this discussion to different existing learning frameworks. And the first and the foremost and the most popular one is the Kirkpatrick model of training evaluation. Kirkpatrick model of training evaluation is there, then the Phillips model of training evaluation also will touch and go. We'll also look into the impact study as such. When you're looking into the Kirkpatrick's 4-level training evaluation model, please do understand this model is based on the 4 levels of training evaluation, the one being reaction, another being level 2 is learning, level 3 is behavior, and level 4 is results. So technically, when you talk about level 1 reaction, understand the learner's reactions, responses, and level of satisfaction through surveys that provide the data, something like participation rates or the data like completion rates or net promoter score, etc. When you talk about learning per se, ascertain the improvements made to employees' knowledge and skills through pre and post training assessments, performance review data, and peer review specifically. When you talk about the behavior, assess any behavioral changes in the workforce by measuring employees' morale, their motivation, and engagement. And finally, impact. Measure how the training impacts businesses through increased KPIs such as, say, sales, productivity, customer satisfaction, employee retention, or even work quality to that extent. So these all 4 levels, reaction, learning, behavior, results, contribute to the Kirkpatrick's training evaluation model. Now let's have a quick look at the Jack Phillips ROI. Phillips ROI methodology is also known as Phillips model of training evaluation. The method typically expands the previous Kirkpatrick's model into 5 levels of training evaluation. So, apart from the reaction, which was understanding learners' experience while learner reviews and surveys, AI technology also I can include now. We had the second level of learning, measuring how well the learning objectives have been met by determining whether learners have acquired the targeted skills and knowledge. Attendance and learner attentiveness are also factored in. We also see application, the implementation. Did the learners deploy the learning on the job? So, gather qualitative data that provides insights from learners about how they have applied the acquired skills. We'll also look into the impact part, determining the positive impact of the training on the organization while considering any barriers that might have hindered it. So, did the learning impact business results? Typically, that impact is tested there. In the fifth level, we also look into the ROI, which is return on investment. So, make the link between the training and improved business results using calculations such as cost benefit analysis. So, these are the certain typical aspects that are associated with Phillips model of training evaluation. Another significant aspect would be the impact study. This method is again a 4-step process for conducting an impact study to understand business changes occurring from a training program's influence. For example, increased sales or market share or improved customer feedback results in evaluation planning. That means determine the indicators to measure the impact. It has a significant aspect like types of sales data. Also determine which training data to collect, such as say cost and participation rates. We also look into data collection. Collect data from a variety of sources which specified parameters that include, let's say, both pre and post training statistics. We also have a measure of data analysis. Collect data from a variety of sources with specified parameters that include the typical post and pre-training statistics, and translate this data into a monetary value through the ROI formula. We also do consider data analysis, where we translate the data into a monetary value through the ROI formula typically. So, the net return on investment divided by cost of investment into 100%. That would be typically the ROI. Net return on the investment divided by cost of the investment into 100% would give the return on investment. So, this is with respect to the data analysis part. When you are looking into the reporting, finalizing the impact study by creating a report that explains the key findings with qualitative and quantitative data. So, these are the typical models that are associated with learning. Now, we move on to the L&D function in transition, which is the Academy's framework. Over the years, we have identified and field tested 9 dimensions specifically that contribute to a strong L&D function. We combine these dimensions to create the Academy's framework. So, which we corroborated it and we formed the Academy's framework with respect to these 9 dimensions specifically, which covers all aspects of L&D functions from setting aspirations to measuring impact. So, although many companies, if you ask me, regularly execute on several dimensions of this framework, the recent research has found that only a few companies are fully mature in all dimensions. The first one is alignment with business strategy. When you talk about one of the L&D executive's primary task is to develop and shape a learning strategy based on the company's business and talent strategies. So, a learning strategy seeks to support the professional development and build capabilities across the organization on time and in a cost effective manner. So, in addition, the learning strategy can enhance the company culture and encourage employees to live the company's values. For many organizations, many institutions, the L&D function supports the implementation of business strategy. For example, if one of the business strategies is, let's say, digital transformation, learning and development will focus on building the necessary people capabilities to make that possible. So, every business leader, if you ask me, would agree that learning and development must align with the company's overall priorities. Research has also found that many L&D functions typically fall short on these dimensions. Only around 40% of the companies say that their learning strategy is aligned with the business goals. For 60%, then, learning has no explicit connection to the company's strategic objectives. This is what we try to infer from that. So, L&D functions may be out of sync with businesses due to outdated approaches or because budgets have been based on priorities from previous years rather than today's imperatives such as, say, digital transformation. So, to be effective, L&D must take a very hard look at the employee capabilities and determine which are the most essential to support the execution of the company's business strategy. The second one is the co-ownership between business units and HR. If you ask me, with new tools and technologies constantly emerging, companies must become more agile, ready to adapt their business processes and practices. So, L&D functions must likewise be prepared to rapidly launch capability building programs. An example could be, let's say, if new business needs suddenly arise or staff members require immediate training on new technologies such as, let's say, cloud-based collaboration tools. So, then L&D functions can enhance the programs, enhance their partnership with business leaders by establishing a typical governance structure. This is what would signify the co-ownership between business units and HR. The third one would be assessment of capability gaps and ultimate estimated value. After companies identify their business priorities, they must verify that their employees can deliver them. So, a task that may be more difficult than it sounds. So, some companies make no effort to assess employee capabilities while others do so only at a very high level. So, conversations with learning and development, HR and senior executives typically suggest to me that many companies are ineffective or indifferent at assessing capability gaps, especially when it comes to senior leaders and mid-level managers and all. So, the most effective companies like companies who take a deliberate systematic approach to capability assessment. At the heart of this process is a comprehensive competency or capability model on the organization's strategic direction. So, an example could be a key competency for a segment for an e-commerce company's workforce could be, let's say, deep expertise in big data or predictive analytics. The fourth aspect of the framework is designing of learning journeys. Most corporate learning is delivered through a combination of digital learning formats and in-person sessions. While our research indicates that immersive L&D experiences in classroom still have immense value, leaders have told us that they are incredibly busy from 8 to late. So, which does not give them a lot of time to sit in a classroom. So, furthermore, many have said that they typically prefer to develop and practice new skills and behaviors in a safe environment. So, we talk about the traditional L&D programs which consisted of several days of classroom learning with no follow-up sessions, even though people tend to forget what they have learned without regular reinforcement. So, as a result, Many L&D functions are moving away from the standalone programs by designing learning journeys, continuous learning opportunities that take place over a period of time and include L&D interventions such as field work, pre and post classroom, digital learning, social learning, on-the-job coaching, mentoring, short workshops, etc. Another significant aspect associated with the Academy's framework, that would be the letter E, which is execution and scale-up. An established L&D agenda consists of a number of strategic initiatives that support capability building and are aligned with the business goals, such as helping leaders develop high-performing teams or roll out safety training. So the successful execution of L&D initiatives on time and on budget is critical to build and sustain support from business leaders. So L&D function typically often face an overload of initiatives and insufficient funding. L&D leadership typically needs to maintain an ongoing discussion with business leaders about initiatives and priorities to ensure the requisite resources and support. Another significant aspect would be the measurement of impact on business performance. A learning strategy's execution and impact should be measured using key performance indicators. The first indicator looks at business excellence, how closely aligned all L&D initiatives and investments are with business priorities. The second KPI looks at learning excellence, whether learning interventions change people's behavior and performance. Last, an operational excellence KPI measures how well investments and resources in corporate academy are typically used. So accurate measurements is not that easy, it's not that simple, and many organizations still rely on traditional impact metrics such as, say, learning program satisfaction, or what I can recollect, something like the completion scores. But high-performing organizations focus on outcome-based metrics such as impact on individual performance, impact on employee engagement, team effectiveness, or even business process improvement for that matter. So we do have we have identified different lenses for articulating and measuring learning impact, right from strategic alignment. How effectively does the learning strategy support the organization priorities? Capabilities, how well does the L&D function help colleagues to build the mindset, skills and expertise they need most? Organizational health, typically to what extent does learning strengthen the overall health and DNA of the organization? Individual peak performance, typically beyond raw capabilities, how well does the L&D function help colleagues achieve maximum impact in the roles while maintaining a healthy work-life balance? So these are the typical framework points. And finally, we move to the I, which is integration of L&D interventions into HR process. Just as L&D corporate learning activities need to be aligned with the business, they should also be an integral part of the HR agenda. So learning and development has an important role to play, if you ask me, in recruitment, in onboarding, in performance management, in let's say promotion, workforce planning, succession planning, everything. The research shows that at best many L&D functions have only loose connections to annual performance reviews specifically, and that is not what is required. Let's say I can take an example of onboarding. Companies that have developed high impact onboarding process score better on employee engagement and satisfaction and lose fewer new hires. Another significant aspect would be E, enabling of the 70-20:10 learning framework. Many L&D functions embrace a framework known as 70:20:10, in which 70% of the learning takes place on the job, 20% through interaction and collaboration, and 10% through the formal learning interventions such as classroom training and digital curricula. So these percentages are general guidelines, and typically, please note, they vary across industry and organization. So L&D functions have traditionally focused on formal learning components. So today, L&D leaders must design and implement interventions that support informal learning, including coaching and mentoring, on-the-job instructions, apprenticeships, leadership shadowing, action-based learning, on-demand access to digital learning, and lunch and learn sessions. So social technologies play a growing role in connecting experts and creating and sharing knowledge. Finally, you have the last link of the Academy's framework, which is systems and learning technology applications. The most significant enablers for just-in-time learning are technology frameworks, technology platforms, and applications. Examples could be anything. It could include next-gen learning management system, LMS, or virtual classrooms, or mobile learning apps, or embedded performance support systems, polling softwares, or let's say learning video platforms, learning assessments, something like this. Measurement platforms, what we are doing right now, massive open online course, MOOCs, and small private online courses, SPOCs, to just name a few. So the learning technology industry has moved entirely to cloud-based platforms which provide L&D functions with unlimited opportunities to plug and unplug systems and access the latest functionality without having to go through lengthy and expensive implementations of on-premises systems. So L&D leaders must make sure that learning technologies fit into an overall system architecture that includes functionality to support the entire talent cycle, including recruitment, including onboarding, performance management, real-time feedback tools, career management, etc. So across this particular session, we have looked into the different frameworks which incorporates learning, which underscores the importance of learning and development. We have concluded our discussion with the Academy's framework. We're going in detail throughout the framework. So please note, learning and development has its own significance, not only with respect to the individual, but also with respect to the organization. That's what the entire set of frameworks that we have discussed points out to us. Thank you for listening to me patiently. We'll see with more details of learning and development in the next class. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.